what is under the ground, despite the fact that people have long been actively using the near space, penetrated into the mystery of the atom, deciphered the genetic code, and even visited the bottom of one of the deepest points of the world ocean, the Mariana Trench. This question, even in the 21st century, scientists cannot give an exhaustive answer. In this issue, we will try to lift the veil of secrecy surrounding this topic. From Rear Admiral Byrd's diary, record of talks with the Arctic Base Camp, February 19, 1947, 9:10 house. Both magnetic and gyro compasses beginning to gyrate and wobble. We are unable to hold our heading by instrumentation. The controls are seemingly slow to respond and have sluggish quality, but there is no indication of icing. 9:15 house. In the distance is what appears to be mountains. 10 house. We are crossing over the small mountain range and still proceeding northward as best as can be ascertained. Beyond the mountain range is what appears to be a valley with a small river or stream running through the center portion. There shall be no green valley below. Something is differently wrong and abnormal here. We shall be over the ice and snow. 10:05 house. The light here seems different. I cannot see the sun anymore. We spot what seems to be a large animal of small kind below us. It appears to be an elephant. No, it looks more like a mammoth. This is incredible. Report this to base camp. 10:30 house. Encountering more rolling green hills now. 11:30 house. Of our port and starboard wings are a strange type of aircraft. They are closing rapidly alongside. They are disc-shaped and have a radiant quality to them. They are close enough now to see the markings on them. It's a type of swastika. I took at the controls again. They will not respond. We are caught in an invisible vice grip of some type. 11:35 house. Our radio crackles and the voice comes through in English with what perhaps is a slight Nordic or Germanic accent. The message is: "Welcome, Admiral, to our domain. We shall land you in exactly 7 minutes. Relax, Admiral, you are in good hands." I note the engines of our plane have stopped running. The aircraft is under some strange control and is now tuning itself. The controls are useless. About what faced Polar Expedition Rear Admiral Byrd a little later. Now let's look at the origins of the theory of the structure of the Earth. What our ancestors thought about this. In ancient times, almost all the peoples inhabiting our planet were convinced of the existence of vast underground world. Hates of the ancient Greeks, Sheol of the Jews, Anduin of the Celts, Asgard of the Buddhists, Svartalheim of the Normans, Xibalba of the Maya. The ancient Egyptians called the underworld Duat. According to their ideas, it was that the sun went down over the horizon. Even the Christian and Muslim beliefs, not long ago, placed under the earth a vast otherworld, hell. Why were our ancestors so unanimous in the opinion that there is a special world underground? Trying to find the answer to this question, we come across the greatest and most careful hidden archaeological secret, namely the existence of a vast, unexplained, branch system of tunnels, artificial origin under the surface of a large part of the territory of our planet. These tunnels are created with the help of high technology, not known to the people, and pass not only on the surface of the land, but also under the bed of the seas and oceans. They are not just punched, but as if burnt in underground rocks, and their walls are solidified, melt of rocks, smooth as glass, and have an extraordinary fortress. By whom and when were they built? And how deep do they go underground? Perhaps this topic is so extensive that it deserves a separate conversation. If you want, so we devoted one of the following editions of Underground Tunnels, Herpes Zoster Network Our Planet. Put a finger up under this video. The maximum depth to which a person officially descended underground is about 2 kilometers. This record was set in the deepest of the world's famous caves, Crow Cave in Abkhazia. The cave goes underground for 2,080 meters exported depth. The distance there is very difficult, not even technically, but primarily psychologically. Expedition take from 1 week and resembles the ascent of the mountain. Base camps are also set up, communication with the outside world is organized. Only has the movements goes in the opposite direction. At a depth of very cold and damp, under the feet of the mud jumping, and sometimes you have to wear a vest suit and overcome water obstacles. And how deep did scientists manage to get under the surface of our planet? The world's deepest well was drilled between 1917 and 1991. Soviet scientists on the Kola Peninsula. Its bottom is removed from the surface by 12,261 meters. The temperature below is 212 degrees. It's thanks to the data obtained in the course of this experiment, science gained those ideas about the structure of our planet, which is now considered fundamental. According to modern information, the Earth's crust consists mainly of basalt and granite. Its thickness ranges from 5 to 10 kilometers on the ocean floor and up to 20 to 70 kilometers on land. Next is the molten mantle of the Earth, the main body of the planet, which is about 67 of its mass and has about 2,900 kilometers in depth. The core of the planet is divided into two parts, the outer, a radius of up to 3,500 kilometers and consisting of liquid iron, as well as the inner, solid, perhaps even crystalline, from a mixture of iron and nickel, a radius of about 1,250 kilometers. There are, however, alternative views held by a number of scientific minds. The fact that the Earth is hollow inside, scientists started talking relatively recently, namely after Copernicus turned the idea of mankind about the world. The famous Edmund Halley, astronomer royal, a mathematician and discoverer of the terrible comet Halley, first loudly declared that the Earth inside is empty. Trying to explain the movement of the magnetic poles of our planet, he suggested a curious hypothesis. What if there are several spherical shells inside it, inserted into one another? According to his calculation, outside our planet is a shell with a thickness of 500 miles, about 1,000 kilometers. Inside the shell are two nested spheres and, in fact, the core of the Earth, the size of Venus, Mars or Mercury, which heads the inner part of the planet. A little later, this idea was picked up by one of the most brilliant mathematicians of the history of this science, a Swiss Leonhard Euler. He abandoned the concept of inner spheres and suggested that the Earth is completely empty, and in the center of it the Sun with a diameter of 600 miles, which shines over the inhabited continents. He recognized the existence of one hollow shell separated by a large space from the nucleus. This shell, in his opinion, has outlets at the north and south poles. According to the scientists, such a device of the Earth will provide better stability of the planet than a few shells. Another serious scientist, Scottish physicist and mathematician John Leslie, developed the theory of Euler, suggesting that inside the planet there are two suns, Pluto and Proserpine. Leslie even offered to equip an expedition to find the entrances to the underworld. In general, by the beginning of the 20th century, there was a whole scientific school whose followers did not consider it shameful to talk about the voids inside the Earth. In 1906, William Reed's book The Phantom of the Poles was published. At the very beginning of the book there was stated, "I am sure that the Earth is not only hollow, but that all or almost all the researchers spent a lot of time behind the last line of the Earth, thus looking into its insiders. Each of the poles, as Reed tried to prove, has a large hole into which the polar explorers are unwittingly drawn. Many of them, including Peary, Franklin, Nansen and Hull, have penetrated quite deep into the bowels of the underworld, and Reed found a lot of evidence of this in their notes, which confirms, in his opinion, put forward his theory." In 1908, Willis George Emerson's book The Smoky God was published, which tells about the mysterious adventure of the Norwegian Olaf Jansen and his father. They sailed north and fell into a hole near the North Pole. Unlucky travelers were in unknown world, inhabited by a highly developed civilization. Underground residents communicated with each other virtually, telepathically, and moved with great speed in disc-shaped aircraft. There was also its sun, located in the center of the Earth. Father and son spent 2 years in the underground world and came out of it through a hole near the South Pole. At the exit, the elderly son died, and the son survived and somehow returned to Europe. Popular science fiction magazine Amazing Stories also became interested in the history of Hollow Earth. Between 1945 and 1949, it published the real story of Richard Shaver. It was claimed that in time memorial some great race inhabiting the planet had dug a gigantic system of tunnels beneath its surface and gone to life there. Pharaoh descendants, known as the Jero, still live underground and use the fantastic machines of their ancestors. The proof of was the mysterious sounds and voices allegedly often coming from the ground. The most interesting thing is that, having published these articles, the editorial board subsequently received hundreds of letters where readers admitted that they periodically hear the voices of the ancients under their feet. And now, more and more often, people around the world hear strange sound from the ground. The main feature of the sound they cause unreasonable panic. One of the last causes officially registered occurred of November 11, 2018. Seismological agencies on all continents have recorded an unusual hum lasting up to 20 minutes. Scientists note the anomalous nature of this phenomenon. The waves recorded by the seismograph were low frequency and monochromatic. That is, they had a certain and constant frequency. Typically, the seismograms are after strong earthquake, but on this day they were known. The source of the rumble was recorded in 24 kilometers from the island of Mayotta, located in the Indian Ocean. A strong low-frequency wave samped from the island around the globe and reached the Hawaiian island, located 60,000 kilometers from the source of sound, and strange sound spread at intervals of 70 seconds. It's not surprising that the theory of Hollow Earth fascinated at the time and the German Nazis. What is even reflected in their symbolism, an equilateral beam cross depicted on tanks and aircraft, was nothing more than stylized black sun shining inside the Earth. German scholars thought that in addition to the poles of the planet, the entrance to the underworld is the same as the Caucasus. There is evidence in the book of Jacques Bergier and Louis Pauwels, Morning of the Magicians. It clearly states Hitler believed that there is a living space under the ground, and because so eager for Caucasus, he wanted not only to seize Baku oil, but also to penetrate the secrets of the Caucasian dungeons. It's noteworthy that in the same year, the top of Nazi Germany began to show increased interest in Antarctica. During 1938-1939, the Germans carried out 2 Antarctic expeditions. Their aircraft made a detailed photographing of the territory, previously completely unexplored, and dropped the several thousand metal pennants with the sign of the swastika. Subsequently, the whole area was called New Swabia and was considered by part of the New Reich. In 1943, Gross Admiral Karl Dennis dropped a very remarkable phrase: "The German submarine fleet is proud of the fact that on the other side of the world created an impregnable fortress for the Führer." For more information about the creation of a secret German base on the 6th continent, you can learn from our video, a link to which will be in description. So we came to the point at which our conversation began today, namely the polar expedition of Rear Admiral Byrd. In addition to the already well-known Operation High Jump, the purpose of which was to destroy the base of the Third Reich in Antarctica, Admiral Byrd also made several follow-on research missions to the poles of our planet. In 1947, he went on a research flight over the North Pole. Near the pole, the Rear Admiral noticed a strange spot that glowed yellows and reds and purple. Flying up to him, the pilot found something like a mountain range. Byrd flew over him and saw, as he initially thought, a mirage of fortress, rivers, meadows, on which animals similar to mammals grazed. and strange flying saucers as something similar to the city with buildings, and strange flying saucers and something similar to the city with buildings, as if carved out of crystal. The external thermometer began to warm up sharply until it froze at a stunning mark of 74 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's at the North Pole. Radio communication with the S did not work. Then continue to quote the diary of Admiral. 11:40 house. Another radio message received. We begin the landing process now. And in moments the plane shudders slightly and begins a descent as thought causes some great unseen elevator. The downward motion is negligible and we touch down with only a slight jolt. 11:45 house. I'm making a hasty last entry in the flight log. Several men are approaching on foot toward our aircraft. They are tall with blonde hair. In the distance is a large shimmering city pulsating with rainbow hues of color. I do not know what is going to happen now, but I see no signs of weapons on those approaching. I hear now a voice ordering me by name to open the cargo door. I comply. According to the Admiral, he had to meet with the King of the Inner World, who noted in the conversation that the underground residents are afraid of the recent atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and warned that the inhabitants of the surface world came to a dangerous line and can destroy themselves. Finally, the King said, "The time will come when we will come to the surface to help your race restore culture. You, my son, must return to the surface world with this message." Admiral again put in the plane, which raised in the air incomprehensible force. The engines were off, and we immediately went on board. All the air around was now saturated with a sense of urgency. As soon as the cargo doors closed, the plane began to rise into the air with an invisible force until we reached a height of 2,700 feet. Two aircraft on the sides accompanied us on the way back. Here I should note that the speed indicator showed that we were not moving. Also, in fact, we were moving at a very high speed. 14:15 house. The radio message came. "We leave you now, Admiral. Your management walks again. Auf Wiedersehen." The plane suddenly shook as if it had fallen into an air pit. We quickly leveled the plane. We were silent for some time. Each was lost in his own thoughts. March 11, 1947. I have just at the Pentagon told of a meeting with the King of the Inner World. The message is registered. He was reported to the President. Doctors are examining me. And 6.5 hours after my statement, the presidential advisor orders for the sake of humanity never to talk about what I saw in the Arctic. I am reminded that I am a military man and must obey orders. The last entry in the Admiral's diary is dated December 30, 1956. All this year I've been hiding a great secret, even though I didn't like it. Now I decided that the whole world should know about it. The North Pole is the entrance to another world. Admiral Richard Evelyn Byrd, United States Navy. After reading the diary of Byrd rises a natural question: where in the Arctic is? Because as you know, the Arctic is located in the Arctic Ocean, where there is no land inside. However, this is not so according to many polar researchers whose words cannot be doubted. Robert Peary, Frederick Cook, Donald Macmillan, Roald Amundsen and Sir Herbert Wilkins. In the area of the North Pole is the S, and they saw it with their own eyes. And Frederick Cook in 1908 even took picture of such land on the horizon on the background of their knot. The picture was taken at the coordinates of the 84 degrees 50 minutes north latitude and 95 degrees 36 minutes west longitude, a few hundred miles from the island of Ellesmere. Cook believed the hills on the horizon were 40 miles west of the polar camp. Next, we collected fragmentary and scattered information left by a number of researchers and scientists concerning the hollow Earth. The Earth has the shape of a ball empty inside. The thickness of the Earth's crust, 1,500 kilometers inside the crust, is the mantle. It erupts from volcanoes. Gravity does not act from the center of the Earth, but from the crust, that is, from the inside the Earth's crust attracts in the opposite direction, so that on the inside of the Earth you can walk the same way as on the outside. In the center of the Earth is a core of inner Sun, 800 kilometers in diameter, which has enough energy to heat the inner part, devoid of heating of the real Sun, but not so powerful to burn all the continents. The entrances to the inner part of the Earth are located at the poles. The diameter of the hole is several hundred kilometers. The inner Earth is inhabited. It's likely that there live people or someone similar to people. There is much more comfortable climate than on the surface, constant temperature and seasonality. It's likely that flying saucers do not come from other planets or galaxy at all, but from the center of the Earth. Most likely this is known to governments and some scientists, but is hidden from the public. In confirmation of the existence of vast areas within the Earth, there are many facts. When approaching the poles, the air becomes warmer. In the waters of the oceans washing the polar region, you can often find floating wood. When approaching the poles, the magnetic needle of the compass begins to behave unpredictably. When measuring tidal waves caused by the moon's gravity in the Earth's mantle, one oddity was noted. Magma waves rise in the equatorial zone and decay to the poles. This directly indicates that under the crust of the Earth there is only a very thin layer of magma, which to the poles comes to naught. The conclusion is obvious. Magma is poured between two layers of the Earth's crust, the outer and inner, which are interconnected at the poles. On recently found maps, all the same Third Reich, which were used by German submarines to travel to Antarctic bases, the unknown lands. According to the latest scientific data, under the surface of the Earth, namely inside its mantle, is a huge ocean exceeding 3 times the water reserves all surface oceans. Is it not surprising that at the time when we send probes to Mars and Neptune, it's impossible to take picture of both poles from a satellite? The trajectories of the orbits of space satellites do not lie above the geographical poles. Explain it this way. When they began to launch the first satellites, some orbits passed exactly above the poles, but for unknown reasons they fell. Therefore, it was decided to go around the pole. What could cause such a shift in the orbit of the satellites? The entrance of the underworld, the gravity pit? On November 23, 1968, the American spacecraft ESSA-7 took several pictures of the North Pole. In the complete absence of clouds, which in such image is extremely rare, in the area of the pole is visible a huge hole. This picture is genuine, examination carried out repeatedly. Modern information tools allow you to look into many parts of the Earth, for example using Google Earth. If you look at satellite images of the South and North Poles, then you see the same thing on all, the milk of white clouds, completely covering the visibility, or a grey flat surface where there should be a pole. It's strange that territory is terra incognita, beginning precisely with 83 degrees of latitude. In all likelihood, at this point at the North Pole, where the Earth is tilted inward, there is a piece of land that connects to the inner part of the Earth. This explains why bears go so far north, precisely because they take refuge in the warmth of the internal land mass instead of falling into hibernation. And why in this area not once observed the appearance of well-fed foxes. In the photograph of the China satellite, one can clearly see not only the dark hole in the mainland, but also the Earth covered with green vegetation. What does this green area an impressive size? However, the most sensational was the video taken from the Space Orbital Station in 1987 and released only now. This video shows a portal or hole through which the flow of air mass goes deep into the Earth's surface. Then an energy cloud in the form of a yellow flame bursts out of the hole. Well, to complete the above, if we assume that in the underworld there is a life of its own, sometimes intersecting with the terrestrial, then a number of anomalous phenomena will immediately become much clearer. For example, from where in Loch Ness Lake, which is located on geological crack, swims prehistoric monster, or why over the polar regions are often observed unidentified space objects. To the questions, what proof do we have that the Earth is not hollow? William Reed at one time replied, "We have no evidence, neither direct nor indirect. On the contrary, everything indicates that the Earth is hollow."